Welcome to another episode of the Weeb Retreat Podcast. We hope you enjoy your stay. We are the Weebs. My name is James. This is Germs. And today we have a lot to talk about. How you doing, Germs?
Doing good. It's another spicy day.
Another spicy day. Timestamps are going to be in the description as always. So, yeah, let's get into this weekly roundup. Boku no Hero, Episode 3. What'd you think?
I thought this was really good. It's continuing off of that the previous episode and getting that setup going for us. So we're actually getting into the actual next arc, and we went straight into it. Right, we're already right into the fighting in action. So we're right into it.
Yep, and I love the first scene of the episode with Deku's dream or flashback or whatever you want to call it. I loved all that stuff. And we got to see the winter out costumes that you were dying to see the first two episodes, but now we finally get to see them. Did they live up to your expectations?
Yeah, with exactly like how I would imagine them to be in the anime. So,
yep.
Good job.
Yep, and the big character this episode was Shinso. So, what did you think of Shinso's return?
Yeah, I think it was really cool, and you saw him a little bit, when All Might was talking to Deku, and then on the hallway you saw Aizawa with with Shinso, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like the similar kind of relationship they're having there, the teacher and the mentor. So he's been training with him, and now we get to see what he's been training up to do.
Yep. And do we have a backstory on Shinso? Like, why is he being introduced into this, training exam? Like, do we know how he qualified for it or any of that yet?
Oh, I think he just trained with him, Aizawa, and then just got recommended to get. I think this is mostly. I think that is the one part that they dig a little fast on. It's he's doing this with everyone to show that he's up to the same standards that everyone else is, and that's pretty easy when you got like Purple Grape and all that in the 1A. So he's definitely hero material compared to a lot of these other side characters that we don't even know the names of.
Yeah, because I got the sense that he wants to prove himself, and they showed that flashback to the the tournament arc. He fought Deku, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that he wanted to prove himself, but I'm just wondering how UA was like, okay, you can come in for this training exam, I guess. Like, I was just curious about how
I think probably the teacher recommendation, he's been training with Aizawa, so I think having that and just this is his test, like all the rest of the heroes had their tests, the first, second episode, whatever. So now this is his test to see if he's up to snuff.
Is it fair to say this was the best episode of the season so far of the three that we have?
Yeah, I would say so far. There was a little bit of a little spice again with that beginning with the vestiges of seeing the previous owners of One for All. So
yeah, I love that. I love seeing that. But yeah, it's I did enjoy this the most out of what we've gotten so far this season, but this season is kind of what I was afraid of. I mean, it's another training arc, and the UA students are fighting, or not directly fighting, but you know what I mean? Like, there's combat amongst each other, and I just feel like we've seen this so many times. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've seen it pretty much every season. We've seen it in OVAs, we've seen it in movies. I mean, here we are in the 5th season in 2021, and yeah, I mean, they're still training.
At it.
I would have expected by the 5th season, like when I started the show in I think 2017, I would have, if I were to go back in time and tell myself that by the 5th season, years later, they're still training and fighting amongst each other for training exams and such, I would have been like, what? That's weird. Because by the 5th season, I would have expected them to be full-fledged heroes. Like, maybe they've become full heroes and now they're taking on cases or whatnot, or maybe they're trying to move up the ranks in the in UA
in the world.
But here we are, 5th season, still kind of doing the same old. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good, interesting point, especially when you compare it to a lot of other shows and just the pacing. Like, the pacing wasn't bad. It was pretty standard, but that's the problem. It's standard, not the bar. Like, this isn't like each episode. I wasn't on the edge of my seat at any point during the episode at all. Some other shows, like, don't want to, but to care it's such a high standard, but like Jujutsu Kaisen or Attack on Titan,
Right.
it's none of those. That's not Boku no Hero. What you're gonna get from Boku no Hero, unfortunately. Maybe in the end game, but that's the thing that you can say with a lot of things. Like, oh, it gets good after 100 episodes, and you don't want like a lot of these other shows you can watch one season, 24 episodes, whatever, and you have a full experience. Boku no Hero, we're like 100 plus episodes in, whatever, and still training. Not like some small big moments and all that, but to the MC, not really much. Just another day at school, really.
Yeah, and think about it like this. So at the end of season 1, we had Nomu show up, right? And like he fought All Might and had that great fight scene. But they were doing a little training activity for that. Season 2 was the tournament arc. Season 3 and 4 are a blur to me, but like it just feels like every season there's some, or yeah, season 3 that was the provisional license exam. Like they just keep training and fighting each other, and I'm just kind of done with it at this point.
I guess the last season had I think you probably forgot because it had such a boring arc after, but with the
I guess that wasn't action packed, like thinking about it, but
then
still,
you
like,
had such a slow after that. It was like a whole 6-12 episodes of just boringness compared to the actual training being paid off.
Yeah, like the first arc was fantastic, right? But then you had that after, That's what I'm saying with Boku no Hero. It's like half the season is fantastic, then the other half is like not filler, but it's dragged out. And I don't know. I've seen them fight amongst each other a bunch of times. We've already seen this stuff. So I'm
they already fought the 1A and 1V fought like a few months ago at the provisional already.
Exactly.
Not much. The power isn't going to change much.
Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. I mean, Shinso's an interesting character. I really like Deku's, the beginning with One for All and that sort of, flashback. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not really hyped for this arc, to be honest with you. So yeah, final thoughts, Germs?
Yeah, it's pretty average and standard, If you're watching Boku no Hero looking for a masterpiece, unfortunately, after 100 episodes in, it's have a little bad news for you, but there's a lot of things to watch at the moment, luckily. So, it's if you're already, if you're already interested in see what happens next, just watch every week, but it's not going to be the action-packed every episode.
Yeah, just know what you're getting into. I mean, it's Boku no Hero, like it's pretty formulaic at this point. I was thinking about it watching it. I'm like, with Kaizen, and especially Kaizen, but like Demon Slayer, those feel like the new sort of shonen, right? And then you kind of have Boku no Hero, and it's not like old shonen, but it has that formula of like the older shonen, right? And it's good. It gives you what you want. It's like fast food. Like if you go to McDonald's and you're expecting a McDonald's cheeseburger, like that's what you're gonna get. But I guess for this arc, for this season, I guess don't expect much after that. So, all right, let's get into Shaman King 2021, episode 2. Take it away. What'd you think?
I thought it was the pretty similar to the first episode. It was good. It didn't have as much spice, but that new character Ren was a little interesting. Cause I thought it's a little bit more of a kids show, you would think, and with the character designs, a little bit more chibi than a lot of other shonens, but. Yeah. Ren's like about to kill a dude, he's like, he blows up his car and about to just kill him real quick.
And some blood in there too.
Yeah. So it's really a weird show. It's like a mix of maybe something more of a Bleach mixed with I don't know, more like a Boku no Hero in a way. It's like you have the character designs and more chibiness of a Boku no Hero And then like the more seriousness, like, yeah, I'm gonna go kill this dude because I'm gonna be the Shaman King. That's what a true Shaman King should do. It's like, whoa, bro, whoa.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're in the second episode and we're kind of now discussing what the Shaman King is, or like that concept. I would have assumed that would probably have been talked about in the first episode, but I understand why it wasn't touched on. And I got to be honest, I did not enjoy this episode as much as the opener. Talk to me about the fight between Yo and Ren. Did you think that was a good fight scene? Because I found it so lackluster, and I'm not comparing this to anything that is recent, like Kaizen. Like I'm not comparing it to anything like that, but it just forget the animation. Like just the fight scene itself, like it kind of happened really quickly. Like Yo finishes it with like a single blow. It was just kind of like there and gone, like real quick.
Well, so similar to like the first episode, really.
Yeah,
that kind of way where it's like it seems like something is about to go on. Two people at the fight, but it kind of just over. The one really weird and interesting thing is like you saw Ren go like 100% resonance. And you were like, oh shit, is that like usually like in an anime, it's like some villain or rival does like goes full Super Saiyan, and you're like, oh, the MC can't go Super Saiyan, and then Yo he's like, yeah, I can 100%. Like
I can go Super Saiyan too.
Yeah, it's like if Naruto like was shown the Rasengan and was like, oh, Rasengan, yeah,
yep.
But, like Deku was like, oh, I need to train for my body to get it to like be able to even like carry it. I'm already ready. So like it feels like really weird. It's like, is the MC already like 100% of his power? Like isn't like he's already knows he's the chosen one or whatever, and like he's super powerful. Like it seems like I feel like it doesn't like be barely any training, and to me it feels like it's like. To me, I would have expected, you see Ren go 100% resonance. You're like, wow, he really is in touch with his, spirit. And you're like, oh, Yo season's like, oh, can we try that? And they tried and failed. Like, oh, we need to build our relationship between me and my shaman, my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And like, then there'd be some training or something. Like, look more into like the past of his.
Let me stop you. It's not 100%. Like they can call it 100% for the second episode, but it's a shonen. We know there's going to be some training of some sort. We know it's not actually 100%. Maybe it's 100% for Super Saiyan 1, but he's got to go Super Saiyan 2 in there and Super Saiyan 3 and forget Super Saiyan 4, but there's going to be something where they got to power up.
That's my question to see with these future episodes is like, is it mostly just gonna be like, I think from what I remember hearing, it's like just like a tournament, like a giant tournament arc or something like that. So because like there's that one show, the Ragnarok, that's coming out either next season or something, and it seems like with that show it's like they're like they're just fighting 100%. It's just a tournament arc, kind of like Kengan Ashura in a way.
Let me give you an analogy. This show reminds me a lot of Zatch Bell. Like, but you don't know anything about Zatch Bell, right? Okay, so with Zatch Bell, they have these kids. You know how in a lot of anime and manga, like they have like it's a person and they have something or someone fighting for them, right? Like Jojo with stands, Pokemon with Pokemon. So in Zatch Bell, they have Mamotos, which is these kids. And with kids with powers, right? And like these like regular people, usually like teens, because it's like a kid shonen show back in the day. They have these spell books and they learn different spells with the Mamoto, and the Mamotos fight each other, right? And the last one standing is the Mamoto King or something like that. Like it's the the king of all of them. Similar. So that if that is going to be what makes the Shaman King, I don't think we exactly know yet because we are anime onlys. We are new to the series. If it's a big tournament arc and it's just people fighting and whoever makes it to the top is the king, this is going to remind me a lot of Zatch Bell, but I will see. I mean, I guess we don't really know yet exactly what's going to make the Shaman King.
Yeah, I just want to see at some point does the main character be like, oh, I'm not strong enough, or like someone's gonna be so much more powerful, like, oh, I won't be able to. I have to train so hard to be able to get to such a high level or something. I like to see like a little bit of training arc. Not like Broken Hero. The whole show is training arc. It feels like
what's going to happen.
But
You
at
know
least something
it's
for
gonna
something
happen.
for the something for the main character to like look forward to, you know, like something like Danmachi and Girls in Dungeons. Like the main character is like always training and like the best, like in the good way. It's like he's like, oh, I'm gonna go against a big fight. You know, it's gonna be a cool big fight, and you know, but it's also like training. Like if I can accomplish this, then I'm on another level than I was before. That's usually how like main characters are in shonen. It's like, you know, before a major fight and then and after a major fight, they're another level there, and that you know, that's training, you can call it. But you know, it's just a big fight. So maybe if it's something like that, where it's just like with each of these fights in the tournament, you know, his level increases throughout the fight.
Well, you
But we'll
know it
see.
will. It's a shonen. It's a shonen. You know it will. And you know, we have the friendship angle this episode. You know, that good old classic. You know, I'm friends with my spirit and you're not, and you're only using it for power, and that's why I'm better, and you know, all that type of stuff. And at the end, we did get honestly, the best part of the episode was him remembering a little bit of his past with his grandfather. And so we know that there is a shaman lineage with his family. So we know that it runs in his genes, and you know, it's sort of a part of him. So that was the best
Yeah.
part for me.
Yeah. Also, maybe that's showing like maybe he's already done his training arc. You know, that was his training arc already right there. You got to see like, oh, why is he able to do that? Like, oh, you know, flashback. I trained with my grandpa. You know.
Well, yeah, that explains why he's strong right now. But I'm pretty sure that they're gonna face someone, and he's gonna have to, you know, learn some new moves or go 200%, because 100% is not going to be enough anymore. You know,
Yep.
so
Yep. That's
yeah,
plus ultra right there.
I thought the opener was a little bit better, and I found the fight scene between Yo and Ren pretty lackluster. But I did like the last scene there with, you know, him remembering, you know, some of his memories with his grandfather, and then at the end there, his my I think it's so funny that it's 2021 and we're using fan subs still. I mean, some things never change, but in my fan sub, you know, the girl that walks in the hospital, she's like, "Yeah, that's my fiance." Is that what it read on your subtitle?
Yeah, I said like, oh, this is Yo's fiance or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Like I was like, "Holy crap!" Because you would expect like, "Yeah, that's my boyfriend" or something, but she's like, "Yeah, that's my fiance." I'm like, "Okay." How old
Some
are
big
these
fancy
people?
one.
So
They look a
yeah,
little, yeah. The character designs are a little too chibi.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
final
overall,
thoughts, Germs. Final thoughts.
yeah, it was okay. Still looking to see, you know, the big hook. You know, a lot of shows have like a big hook that fit to me, or like you're the main character or something. But you know, it just seems like a kind of like just chill, you know, relaxing dude. So maybe if he maybe becomes badass or something in any way, I don't know. Just nothing's really hooking me at the moment. Nothing's got me like, oh, I gotta see like, you know, uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing too hype for me.
Yeah, same. And I think when they explain the Shaman King and they explain that you have to fight for it, and I think that'll be the hook or the selling point. But yeah, um, yeah, first episode was better for me, so we'll see where it goes. I'm not saying this was bad, but really the fight with Yo and Ren kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. But all right, let's move on with the weekly roundup here. We have a new one that we're adding to the roundup. Don't toy with me, Miss Nagatoro. So this is episode 1. What did you think, Germs? What did you think of this episode?
Well, for me, the animation and her voice and everything was just perfect. That's exactly when I heard that voice, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the teasing voice I've been picturing in my head.
Yep.
And like the style that like the like pastel colors, like, you know, when it's like more an evening or afternoon,
Yep.
it's like, that's a nice, like, it's not just like an standard just like school looking setting, and like it looks like it has like that more fancy lighting.
Yeah, so you're the manga reader here, and I'm the anime only. So I'm walking into this brand new. This is totally fresh to me. So surprisingly, I found this anime to be somewhat relatable. Like, you know that first half of the episode, that scene where they're like, "Oh, we need to go grab a book," and the book is like right behind him, and internally he's like, "Oh shit!" Like he's kind of nervous. Like I've been in socially awkward situations like that. Like I found it somewhat relatable, which is surprising, but and I knew that this anime would be about like her teasing him. But man, I feel bad for this boy. Holy shit.
Oh.
I got to ask you, and you can't get into spoilers, and I'm not asking you to, but is that bullying aspect, is that going to be like every episode? Is that the whole series, or does it go somewhere, or are we going to get that should I expect that every single week?
Yeah. As a manga reader, because it's been a little while, because I've only been reading the most recent stuff, and it was kind of surprising to see how it kind of goes kind of deep in the beginning. It's like, oh. Yeah, it's like, oh my God. It's like, they're all just like making fun of him, and he's like, oh, my whole life, it's like, God damn, woo. Like, yeah, so I think it laid it on a little deep just in the beginning, just so, you get a little bit of understanding. But yeah, she was kind of brutal.
Yeah. Are we going to get, is there going to be a relationship built up between them? Like, are they going to get closer and like that's the main thing, right? Like she teases him, but eventually we're going to see them interact with each other more and not just in bullying or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's more of like a self-improvement kind of story for the MC. The MC right now is not going to be the MC at the end of episode 12,
Yeah.
He's going to like he almost wanted to stand up, and be like, can you quiet down, but he didn't. But I think him...
That scene where she goes to fake kiss him, I'm just like, oh man, I feel bad for my boy. And then like in my subtitles, she calls him like, why would you think anyone would kiss your virgin looking ass? And like they're making fun of him for his manga. I'm like, oh man, like I used to be this kid, like this little nerdy kid that like, like got made fun of for like dumb little shit like this. Like I felt bad. I'm like, oh man. And he's not even like the most likable MC. I just was like, yeah, that sucks.
You feel bad for a guy,
You do, yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, I think it's gonna be it's just because the improvement, it's just slightly improvements between the relationship. He's growing as an actual a person. So and then a lot of comedy and kind of things like that.
But it's not going to be bullying every episode, right? Like,
no.
Okay.
It's teasing. It's teasing. Like this first episode was a little bit more bullying. I was like, oh, I don't remember it being this harsh. Like they're doing my boy, dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a lot more of like a teasing, as he as it goes on. But yeah, that first episode was kind of woo.
Well, they want to hook you. They want to sucker you right in and be like, this is what the show's about. You know what I mean? To where like they want it to be a memorable first episode, and they totally succeeded. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, and then the ending. So that ending that we got, that's probably that's the opening, right? Dude, that's a fire opening. What'd you think of that opening?
Oh, the visuals.
The visuals were so good, dude.
Yeah, and it was like a little like I wanted some of those things like a poster or like a shirt or something. Like, that was good stuff. I can't wait to see that opening every time. That's one of the few pieces I might not skip at all in the season.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, interesting experience for me. Final thoughts for you?
Yeah. As a manga fan, I don't remember it being so spicy right in the beginning, but the voice and the animation and like the style and the colors that it's got going on are beautiful for what I was expecting. So good shit. I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, I'm glad that we decided to put this on the roundup, and I see what the hype is about. So I'm curious. I don't know if I'm going to like this, but that was a very fun first episode. Not fun for our boy, but yeah, I'm curious, and I can't wait to see what comes next. So yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get into our next anime on the weekly roundup. We have Tokyo Revengers. I was very hyped for this one. What'd you think, Germs? What'd you think?
It was actually a pretty nice first episode, I would say. It gave a little bit of everything. It gave some of the characters, some of the world, some of the other characters we might see in the future, and then also had a little bit of spice with that twist. And then right at the end, you see the big thing. It's like, oh, so this is what we're. So like you got a little taste of some of the characters. They didn't just throw you right in, but then by the end, you're like, okay, now we're in it. They hooked you in. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing here. It's a good first episode. Your first episode, you want to see like, am I gonna like this show or not? It's like, okay, this showed me what it's gonna be about. Hopefully. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a solid first episode. Train-kun made its appearance, as we see with lots of isekai, but this is not an isekai. Yeah, it's got the gang aspect and the time traveling aspect, which is, that's exactly what I thought it would be like. What'd you think of his girlfriend? I thought she was so cute. And she's
Oh,
like, like a little firecracker, and she's short and small, but cares about him a lot. I thought at least showing a little bit of her personality was fantastic, I thought.
yeah, like his motivation for why he's doing all this. It's like, especially like right in the beginning when he's like, "Oh, yeah, let me clean you up," and all that stuff. She's like, and that didn't like yell at him like, "Oh, you're gang fighting again," It was more genuine, like caring about him. So
yeah, it wasn't a character that, it's not like his motivation is unknown. Like, oh, well, he had a girlfriend and he wants to save her. Like, we got to see her, so it kind of puts a face to a name and it makes us familiar with her as the audience.
and for him,
So yeah,
technically too, because he forgot.
True, yeah, because he totally forgot. Tachibana Hinata, so that was her name. Yeah, and then okay, the other relationship we have to talk about is the main character Takamichi and his ex-girlfriend's brother, because that seems like it's going to be a big relationship going forward. Like they're gonna, tease at the end they're going to be working together to try and, solve this mystery. So what'd you think of that?
Yeah, I thought that was like super interesting. Like, it's kind of like with the race in a way, but like, he instantly sees the actions. Like, like he saved her and it's like, oh, bam, woke up back. Hey, it's me. I saved you from not dying. It's like, oh, okay. So like whenever he changes something, like that's why he got instantly drawn back, because now that since he said it to the kid, now the kid saved him, so now he's brought back. So that's a really weird and interesting way of doing like the time travel. So that's really
yeah, and we talked about this on the preseason. The trailer gave me Erased vibes, and you mentioned it here. I mean, it does feel like Erased, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when I think back to my time with Erased, we could talk about the ending, but whatever. The ending's the ending. People are gonna love it or hate it. But I didn't like the bouncing back and forth in Erased. I always liked when he was, because he went back in time, right? I liked when he was, in the past. Whenever it would shoot to the present and all this crazy stuff going on, I wasn't a fan of that. So if Tokyo Revengers can give me that, but give me a solid present day, that would be good. But, that's the only thing I'm a little bit worried about. But that's just, because of my experience with Erased. I just didn't really like when they would go back to the present. But we'll see if Tokyo Revengers can pull it off. I mean, this was a solid first episode. So, yeah, a solid first episode for me. But let's see how it goes, because what I'm assuming is that he's going to find a way. I mean, it's kind of like a race. Like, we don't know yet. He'll go back, maybe change a few things, then maybe shoot back to a new present, like a new timeline. And then, I don't know. So I assume there's going to be some bouncing back and forth, but hopefully not too much present day stuff. I want to see him in the gang that he was running with. I want to see him get revenge on those people, Tokyo Revengers. I want to see him interact with Tachibana Hinata. I want to see some of the early days. You know what I mean? So
yeah, before
as long as we get more, as long as we get more of that content, I'll be happy. So
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Solid.
Yeah, it's pretty solid, and just I'm hooked in to see what happens next. So.
Yeah, pretty solid. It's a drama / action show. So yeah, I'm expecting good action, good drama, good character development, a mystery. How is he going back and forth? So it gave me what I wanted. So I'm happy. All right, so let's jump into another premiering anime of the spring 2021 season, 86. Now, some people have heard of this, some people haven't. If you're a light novel reader, you've absolutely heard of it, and you think it's the best thing on the planet. So it's finally here. What'd you think of the first episode of 86, Germs?
It was pretty interesting. It didn't have that final like hook sinker for me, but like there was a lot of interesting things going on. They really went deep and hard into some of the concepts. They did more show, not tell you. They didn't like say it out loud. Like sometimes when for one example, when a character killed themselves, and it's like, oh, you gotta kind of read what was going on, not just they didn't sound like have a big flash like blah 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 dead, So I like how it's like a little bit more mature. we saw a little bit more. I imagine, obviously, death isn't going to imagine be like every episode, but just the brutality of some of the things, like with the like when that one scene with his friend was like all damaged, and he was already on his last legs, and he's like, just finish it, Ah.
Yep. What'd you think of that opening scene, dude?
Yeah,
Very first scene of the
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting seeing the difference. Like, especially once you see it later in the episode, you're like, oh, okay, so there's tons of litter and all that kind of stuff all over the place, and you're like, you think this is like could be a utopia, all clean and stuff. People are just like drinking and like living lax. Like, oh, don't even worry about it.
Well, I'm referring to the very first minute of the big battle scene where you see. Yeah, and I don't know what they're called. I'm new to this. We're new to this. But the tanks, the vehicles, whatever the hell they're in, just the cinematography. I mean, I know a lot of it was CG, but just the way the camera angle was moving with you, and tons of smoke and scrap metal flying everywhere. I mean, it was like I was like, damn, we're starting with an action scene. Like, okay, I was pleasantly surprised.
I gotcha. Yeah, I was thinking about the scene right after that. My bad. Yeah, it was really cool. I'd agree. I didn't expect it. Right. Usually, some shows start right from the get go, and then maybe it's like a future event that we'll see it later.
Yeah, and I it's CG, but I thought it was so good. That really surprised me. I was sitting here, I turned on the episode. I'm like, whoa, we're getting right into this. This is pretty interesting. And then the MC. What did you think of the MC? So what I get from her is that in this, and again, I forget the country. We'll have all the names memorized as we continue watching, but lots of she's in the military, and lots of her fellow comrades, let's say, are very they're either lazy or unpatriotic, and it seems like she has a lot of honor and integrity and character. Like, she wants to do the right thing. Yeah, as you would hope, even if it's not her pay grade. And maybe that's because I think her father might have been in the military. Like, she has a military family background. So yeah, what'd you think of her?
Yeah, I think as a character, pretty interesting. The character design, I saw some memes, like, oh, it's like Esdeath from Alchemy of Kill, or like, or Enterprise from Reserve Lane. So it's like, at least, she has, her outfit and stuff. That's what separates her. It's a little hard to do a white-haired, anime character without looking somewhat generic in a way. But I like her outfit and how it all looks. It gives her distinct style. And just like her actual character, like, the integrity of like, when they were making fun of her, like, there's destroy the drones, she didn't just like, oh yeah, just like ignore it, but like, because to her, she knows like those are human lives that were lost.
And I love that they show that. I love that she's not just taking over a new unit. That right at the end of the episode, we get to see who these people are. So I think that was awesome. And it just goes to show you lots of world building, and which is perfect. That's exactly what you want the first episode of this type of show to be. So lots of world building. I thought the music was great too. Fantastic music. We had I assume that's the opening at the end there. That looked pretty fire there. So, soundtrack wise, great. World building and character wise, so far so good for me. So, final thoughts on this one, Germs?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Hopefully, there's it's probably good the characters are what's gonna hook me in the end. But I don't think it's not gonna be like a mechanic or any unique thing. It's gonna be just the characters that are gonna hook me if I like them. So yeah, I'll continue watching, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I understand, she develops a relationship with, the crew that she's going to take over, and like they're part of the 86, and maybe I think they're a marginalized group. So maybe she doesn't, pity's not the right word, but she sympathizes with them and understands their situation. So I'm interested to see how that relationship is going to work down the line.
Yeah.
So let's move on here in the weekly roundup. We have Nomad, Megalo Box Season 2. And so we did not get to the first episode last week, so we have 2 episodes to talk about this week. All right, so let's start with the first. What did you think of this first episode of this second season of Megalo Box?
Yeah, the first episode really went like pretty deep into it. I was like, okay, maybe they'll like show like some previous stuff. Like they showed like, for like a split second, but then like, oh, this is like the current day, like day with all these new boxers. Like, oh, none of these characters we recognize, and then we're like, oh, so where's what's everyone else doing? And we're like, oh. Then it goes right into just showing him all Gruzzle, just fighting, beating the shit out of some dude, and you're like, woo. He's like, yeah, find me someone that's actually an opponent. It's like, woo, come. He's just going hard for fights, and then just the drug abuse and all that kind of stuff is just woo, going right into it in episode 1.
Right into it, and yeah. So what I thought it was a perfect opening. I mean, after watching the first episode last week, I sat here thinking, there's no way they could have gave us a better first episode opening to a new season. Like, it honestly felt like a movie almost. The number one thing that I noticed, and this is definitely going to be a subject we'll be talking about with the second episode here, and I noticed this immediately with this first episode, is that they're going with a completely different vibe this season, right? So, first season was a futuristic Japan with, kind of centered in the slums in the surrounding area, right? So you see some futuristic technology, but it's kind of in the slums of the, outside the inner city, right?
Mm-hmm.
This season, totally different. I don't get those futuristic vibes at all. This has a Spanish vibe to it. And I noticed this like straight from the beginning, and definitely episode 2. And usually I would hate when shows do a 180 like this, because you establish something in the first season, and you want to stay with that. You want to keep that going, right? Because that's what you expect as the audience.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta tell you, man, I'm here for the ride. If they want to go Spanish on us, like, bring it. Like, I'm totally fine with it. I know that it's changing it up a little bit, but I think it's fit, and it's working for the season. And definitely the second episode we'll talk about it, but it fits the vibe of this season. And so this is an anime original, so the creators behind this knew what they were doing, and you can tell that they're treating this with love and care. Like, they made this decision, this creative decision, and I think it's totally working. What about you?
Yeah, I think it was especially like that, like in the beginning when he was at that bar, and there was a few minutes of just listening to that. Like, it was Spanish like music, but I think it was like French or some other language. I don't think it was Spanish, from what I remember.
It wasn't?
Yeah. But like, you obviously the style and the feel of it was Spanish.
It sounded,
it
sounded Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just like we'll say we'll talk more about that in the second episode. But yeah, like you can see it right from the beginning, especially
from the beginning.
They hit it right. He's just sitting there at the bar, just like deciding if he wants to take the drugs or not.
I thought that scene was so good. Like, that's a scene that you would see in a movie in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, that's a cinematic scene right there. It felt so cinematic. That's what I'm saying. This first episode felt like a movie. And I love how in the first season we open up to him doing fixed fights, right? This season we open up and he's doing shitty fights in the underground, but he does not want to do fixed fights. And when he gets a fixed fight, he actively does not want that. And when he does get a fixed fight, he's all pissed off afterwards because he went in it with his best intentions, but his opponent, threw it. So
yeah, it's also really cool, especially like going back to the first season, because like first season, like he actively is like, okay, I do fixed fights all the time, and then now it's like a complete 180 from that. Now it's like if he gets one, he was screaming he was howling like a dog or a wolf, at the end when he won.
Speaking of wolf, did you notice the wolf's death at the end of the first episode? I mean, that's so symbolic. I mean, that's just so like, it's just good shit right there, man. There's nothing else to say. Like, that's just good because we saw, the wolf is a theme. We saw him in the first season. And so to start off the second season, not at the end, right from the beginning, the very first episode, he pulls up, like last scene, and we see the wolf is dead and he buries the wolf. I mean, again, it's just very symbolic. It show in him burying the wolf. It's almost like him burying his former self. Like, he is abandoning the greatness that he once was at the Megalonia tournament, and now he's kind of back to where he was, but even worse. I mean, now he's back to fighting at this place was Slaughterhouse, but now he's taking pills, and he has all sorts of demons. So he's in a worse situation at the start from the start of season 1. So.
Yeah, and he's you know yeah, would agree.
Yep. All right. So then let's get into the second episode. They keep the momentum going, dude. What did you
Oh
think of
yeah.
the second episode?
Oh, it was great. They'll hit you hard in the head with those Spanish vibes for days. A
Yes.
festival, like
Mm-hmm.
the ethnicity of everyone. It's more slums, but they're having a fiesta. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
fun time. Like the mom is like super welcoming to him and helping him out,
Mm-hmm.
even though her son stole his bike. Mm.
Yeah, and it's anime, so it's hard to tell what the ethnicity is of the characters. Like the boy to me looks like an African American, but well, I guess like African descent because this is technically in futuristic Japan.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Spanish vibes, like the holiday. I mean, if that is not Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead,
Mm-hmm.
if that's not at least inspired by the Day of the Dead, then I mean, come on, that's either Day of the Dead that they were celebrating or heavily inspired by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like even okay, so the X fighter he fought, he explained to him, and again, this is for a Japanese audience, right? It's an anime, but he's like Mikasa Sukasa, right? And then he like explains what that means to an American audience or just over here, like we know what that means, but I guess a Japanese audience they wouldn't know what that term is, right? So yeah, heavy Spanish influence. Even the graffiti in the episode when the boy went to meet his little gang members, even the graffiti on the wall had that Spanish art style to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and it feels
yeah,
genuine.
yeah. Yeah, they're sticking to it. Besides the vibe, like, what did you think of the content of the episode?
Yeah, it was really good, especially. Well, I'll start with the other stuff, but like seeing him like continue, like even continue from the first episode, just continually dealing with like the drug, like holding in his hand, like like should I take him? Like he was crying and all that stuff, and keep deciding. And then at the end, when he washes him away, he's like, the drugs are gone. Now it's time for a new beginning. So I think that just that little arc there. But like then there's also the chief and all that stuff. But just off our boy Joe, just the big character development, just because it felt naturally. He was continually through the first and second episode like, should I pop these pills? Do I should I not? Like he threw him like towards the toilet, and then like he went and picked him up. At one time. So him finally after all these times of dealing with it, finally was like, no, not anymore. No, the drugs are gone. Let's get right back to the training and becoming a new person.
And I absolutely loved the scene where he was sitting with the chief talking to him. I mean, that just reminded me of like when I go camping and we sit around the fireplace drinking beers and talking. Like it just feels so grounded. You know what I mean? Like it just feels so down to earth and like obviously it's set in the future and they have the megalo parts and all that, but it just this season feels so raw and so real and so just stuff that you can relate to. You know what I mean?
Whoever the director and the creator of this is doing a super good job in blending these like Spanish and all these other vibes like really naturally into a story.
Very naturally. They're doing it so well. I can see another anime or another studio doing this and totally fucking it up, but it totally works for this season. And the art style, it's that classic Megalo Box that we loved from the first season. So that's not being switched up. And then the big thing at the end, the big what shall we say, the big cliffhanger at the end, the revelation that we get to. So apparently, he's looking in the mirror and he's talking to his coach, his former coach, Nanbu, and he's like, did you die at my hands? And he's like, oh yeah. And it's just like that's why he's depressed and he spiraled down. And for me, that I was like, oh, because I thought he was actually following him this whole time.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he keeps following all these places. I'm like, damn, he's dedicated.
I know. I'm like, man, I guess Joe just goes from town to town, and then Nanbu, I think his name is, just kind of tracks him down, and he might be there a day or two late, but no, this is his ghost, his his spirit that he's seeing. And we don't know if it's actually Joe's fault, but when Joe asked him, did you die at my hands or something to that effect? He said, yeah. So if Joe was the result of his death, that's going to be that's spicy stuff right there, right?
Yeah, and he's had trouble dealing with what happened as we see from these past few episodes. So I feel like this season is going to be a lot more focused on the personal, like dealing with his demons, and then going from solving all of his problems while trying to help out the village. How about give him, maybe he's going to give them the money once he wins or something like that.
Yeah, and just from these first 2 episodes, it shows me that the creators are not afraid to take risks, and the risks I think were paying off, right? Like, his former coach is now the first season. It was him, his coach, and the little boy, right? That was the little trio that they had running, right? The coach is now dead, that we've learned. The boy is really nowhere to be found. Maybe he'll show up, maybe he won't. We've got Spanish vibes. Joe is at his absolute worst. It doesn't even seem like Joe is getting back into combat. He comes back, sees Chief, and he's like, yeah, like, because Chief is going to enter the local tournament to get that money. He's like, yeah, I'll help train you. And, Chief was like, on one condition, if you put down the drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I assume Joe's going to mentor him, and then that tournament will conclude, and then at some point, Megalonia, like the big one, maybe Joe will want to get back into it somehow or some way. But it almost seems like Joe is going to be a coach for this little arc that we have coming up. It doesn't even seem like he's going to be fighting, but who knows?
Yeah. They're not afraid to take risks, so they might, maybe, I'm just saying totally random things. Maybe the chief dies or something in some way, and it's like Joe's like, okay, I got to carry on his legacy, and maybe he becoming the chief in some way, Or there's so many different ways. There's so many different ways. Luckily,
so many ways.
There's nothing really holding us back from doing crazy things. I imagine we're gonna stay away from like the Megalonian. We're gonna focus just more on Joe and like solving his demons. And then once he's like, okay, I got myself all together. I'm gonna help out this village, and then I'll go to Megalonia or start training for Megalonia or something like that. Then we'll start seeing like maybe the kid will come back. Maybe he's been a fighter or something. But I feel like for a little while, it's going to be mostly just, Joe and then, this family he has.
Yeah, and they've already teased the tournament winners since Joe, right? Because Joe was like the first, I assume. So they've been teasing Megalonia. At the end of the first season, they teased a second, Megalonia as well. So we know it's coming. We know somehow Joe's going to get back in there and enter that tournament. It's just a matter of when and how and what circumstance. And after finishing the first season, I was like, man, that was a good ride. Like, I love combat sports. I love seeing this. I was afraid of the second season being a little bit formulaic, like just kind of following in the footsteps of the first season. Somehow, some way he just enters the tournament again, and we just get a repeat of the first season. But absolutely not. Like this season is really taking it in a new, interesting, fun direction. And it's a completely different show that we're watching from, the first season. So I think it's totally doing its job of keeping us on our toes and keeping us interested. And I'm so hyped for this season, man. I think that it's been doing fantastic so far, and I can't wait to see the rest.
Yeah, super agree.
All right, so final thoughts. Good stuff so far.
Yeah, super excited to see. There's so many different directions. I'm on my toes. I just want to see what happens next.
Me too. All right. So that is going to conclude the weekly roundup for this week. You can expect all of those shows on the next week's roundup. We will be continuing the segment for the rest of the season. So, yeah. All right. So for this week's weekly discussion, we're going to be talking about an anime that just premiered this past Thursday, The Way of the Househusband. This is a Netflix original anime series. So let me first explain the meaning behind that, right? So as a Netflix original anime series, Netflix produced this, okay? They don't just have the license for it, right? So Shaman King, they have the license for. So that's why we do not have a legal way to stream Shaman King until Netflix decides to, eventually drop it, and we get that, months down the road, right? But since this is a original anime series done by them and JC Staff, what a fantastic combination, Netflix and JC Staff, they own it completely, right? So they can drop it whenever they want because they're the ones that produced it. So we don't have Netflix jail with this one. And because they produced it, Netflix likes to give us, bingeable content, right? So we got 5 episodes. Me and you are all expecting this to be, a weekly, regular series, but no, we got five episodes, 17 minutes each, only on Netflix. And yeah, so that's the difference between a Netflix license and them producing the series themselves. So just to clear that up, we were confused. We thought that we'd be reviewing this weekly. Thank God we don't have to. The Way of the Househusband. What did you think, Germs? What did you think?
It's unfortunately exactly what I thought it was gonna be, which was a PowerPoint slideshow. Like there's some good things to it, but due to it being a PowerPoint slideshow, it can only be as good as a PowerPoint slideshow can be. It could have good writing and good characters and dialogue and stuff, on paper, but actually watching it, this wasn't it, Chief. This wasn't it.
This was not it. And so before anyone says, okay, but you can't just judge an anime by the animation, let me remind the folks at home. This is anime. It's animated manga. It's taking the original source and it's bringing the panels to life. It's actually animating them. And what we got with this series is not really an animated series. I mean, to say this is animated is kind of an insult to something like Demon Slayer or something that like a Ufotable or Mappa would put out, right? I mean, there's a lot of scenes in here where there's square still frames of the characters. I mean, it's almost like a panel from the manga. They just ripped one of these panels out, and there's slight animated movements, right? Like their mouth might be moving. Maybe you see a little bit with their hands or they're doing something, but it's really not animated. Like, this is not really an animated series. What it is an animated manga, right? Like, this is manga panels that have slight movement to them. But the reason we love anime is because we want to see this
fluid.
We want to see this completely fluid. We want to see this brought to life, right? We don't want panels that have slight, animations to them. We want to see a complete, a redesign, complete animation takeover, and that is absolutely not what we got with this. And so this is what you were expecting it to be,
unfortunately.
Yeah
it's not like it was bad animation. It just there wasn't animation. Like there
wasn't.
Yeah, we weren't expecting any kind of Attack on Titan or Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen hype fight moment and whatever. We were just expecting just the bare minimum, but I guess the bare minimum Netflix and JC staff can't give us,
Yeah, and again, just to be, because I know that there's going to be comments out there and people, if you look through comments, people are already fighting. Well, the mangaka likes how the series is done. They think it's comedic and they like the manga style. But just because the mangaka likes it, that doesn't mean it's good. It might mean it's authentic, but that doesn't mean it's actually good. The mangaka was involved in the 2nd season of Promised Neverland. Look how that turned out. I mean, is anyone going to sit here and say, well, the mangaka was, they were sitting through that process, so the 2nd season of Promised Neverland's good because the mangaka was involved in that. No, that doesn't automatically, it may make it more authentic to the mangaka's desires, the original creator's desires, but that doesn't mean it's good. Let's talk about, is there any what are the positives here? Let's get to the positives before we kind of say our piece with this.
Positives, if it was basically everything else was there. The voice acting, especially the dub, fantastic. They didn't get just random super shitty mics or anything. It's this was high quality, voice acted things, and the sub and it was good as well. It's just when the sound effects and the comedy. If I was I was watching the dub so I could look away a little bit. So I felt just not watching it and just hearing it was more fun. And then I'd look over and then it'd be 1 frame a second. Not even a frame a second for some of these action quote unquote scenes.
You weren't missing much, dude. you weren't missing much. If there's any anime that you can look away from, this would be like the one.
Because like the comedy, like I could feel that it was there, and like I imagine if there was like a really cool like it's basically like just like read the manga while you're listening to this, and it's like an audiobook of manga.
Yeah, and it technically it does, because I was getting so bored. I did pull out the manga and start flipping through it. They do it out of order slightly, but what's funny is that they do pretty much adapt the first 3 volumes. It looks like. Yeah,
it's just the actual animation will just kind of like brings it all the way down, which is it's the important part. That's the core of an anime is its animation.
Yeah, if you want to see manga panels, why wouldn't you read the manga? Like, I'm trying to understand what the point is. The point of this is, if you want to see panels, read the manga. You don't need to see them slightly move their mouth. It's the humor is lost in this anime, right? So there's that one little, there's 30 mini episodes or 30 chapters in this 5-episode span, right? At the end of one of them, he gets in a fight with one dude, I think a former Yakuza dude, and they take pictures of their food and they upload them on Instagram, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Tatsu wins because he has 1 like and the other guy has no 0 like on his photo, or the other way around. But that scene goes by so quick because it's a slideshow, right? So it's just picture after picture after picture after picture, right? With the manga, you can read that panel and digest it. You can look and see, oh, he has 1 like, he has no likes. That's pretty funny. Like, that's why one of these characters is all bummed and the other is all happy that they won the battle, so to speak, right? It's funny. With this anime, because they're cramming 30 mini episodes into 5 episodes, actual episodes, some of these slideshow presentations go by quick. And so I can imagine someone watching that mini episode and like at the end of that episode being like, like what happened there? Like, why is what? Like, it just goes by so quick. It's not easily digestible. And that is the biggest problem I think I have with this Netflix series. The humor is lost, right? This is a comedic manga. That's all it's meant to be. It's not meant to be anything else other than a comedy. And if you can't, this is what I said in the preseason thoughts. If you can't get the comedy right, then it fails, right? It's like watching a scary movie and not being scared at all, right? Mm-hmm. Like if this comedy is not funny, like, did you find this anime funny at all?
Well, this is actually the one thing I'm different on. I think actually there's actually a pretty good amount of moments that were actually kind of funny. Like when he goes to the do yoga and everything. And just like the way like he's saying random things and all that kind of stuff, or like the crate battle, that was a pretty funny one. But like, I think, well, for me, I haven't seen anything previously, so I think the comedy wasn't lost too much on me. Maybe obviously I would have probably enjoyed it more if some of the panels, if I was looking at actual manga panels of some of the things, like it looked real nice. I can pause on it on my own time. But to me, I think the comedy wasn't lost too much. It was just the animation that really let it down.
Yeah, so for me, and again, I'm glad that you found it funny. I read the source material, man. The manga's funnier.
Welcome to the club.
The faces in the manga. This is why I stay away from manga, man. This is why, because it's like reading a novel before watching the movie. The movie's not going to be as good as the novel, so reading the novel is going to ruin your experience with the film. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's why I think if you watch a film, then you want to see a better version of it, go read the manga. That way, it kind of doesn't kill your first viewing of the movie when it comes out on the big screen. Mm-hmm. The problem is that I read the manga first, and so I know that the faces are animated, drawn, but way better in the manga, right? Like, you see, they're just more detailed, more funny. Like the cat mini episode, like that was so funny in the manga, and then here it just kind of happens, and you get a slideshow presentation and it's kind of funny. Like, the content is there. Like, this can be really, really funny. It doesn't, the delivery doesn't work. It's a slideshow presentation and it just felt weird. It felt awful. It felt hard to sit through for me. And I hope I'm not being too hard on it. I mean, let's talk about the good thing, right? The dub. We both agree on the dub, right? Mm-hmm. Jonas Scott does Tatsu, the former Yakuza boss. He also did a character in High Rise Invasion, which is, an anime that we recently talked about. I recently talked about. We'll link that right there for you guys to see. So the dub is good. I thought the music was good too, honestly. The OP is visually, it's a little too much. It's like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, this is like all over the place. But the music is good. Even the ending wasn't too bad. Again, visually it's like nothing, but it sounded good, right? Like the soundtrack is there.
Yeah, it's not like someone phoned it in or anything. Maybe a little bit, but like no, it wasn't. Like they bought the basic anime package,
Is there any other positives for you? Do you have any other good things to say about it?
No, just other than just like I thought the comedy wasn't too lost to me. But like just the animation was the thing. It's like that's the whole main thing. It's just like the core is just like a empty shell, Everything else works. So it should be like, well, if there was a good core there and a good animation, this would be top tier. We'd be laughing our asses off. But because the core of the show is just so not there, it's just like, well, it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you have like you die in one punch or whatever,
Yeah, the foundation, it's got a good foundation, but the execution was off. And that's how I feel about it. Did I hate it? No. I just found it hard to sit through, especially because I wanted to, it's only 17 minutes. I wanted to sit through and watch all 5, and I did. But I found it difficult to do that. And I should not be doing that with The Way of the Househusband. The Way of the Househusband is funny. It's hilarious. But why would anyone want to watch this as opposed to reading the manga? Like, if you really, really like the manga and you want to see what Netflix and JC staff were able to do with it, give it a watch for shits and giggles. But in no universe is this a better experience than the actual manga. I mean, in my opinion, it's almost it's almost like a fact. Like, in no way is this going to be, a more enjoyable experience than the manga. So that's how I feel about it. You want to wrap this up and give us some final thoughts here, Germs?
Yeah. Just as I was saying this whole time, it's just like the comedy was good, the voice acting and everything else is all good. It's just a slice show, not an anime. So that's if you're okay with looking away from the screen, like how I was doing, I was seeing some other stuff on the side, just like put it on the side. Yeah, every once in a while I look over and okay, laugh a little bit, and then, but don't expecting a 10 out of 10 like. You turn off all the lights and like really immerse yourself in this. No, you want just on the side, just while you're doing something else.
All right, so I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I'm going to put you on the hot spot here. When I reviewed High Rise Invasion, which I've been making comparisons with this anime, I gave it a score, I'm pretty sure. What would you give this out of 10? Off the top of your head, if I'm like, The Way of the Househusband by Netflix, what do you give this out of 10?
I would unfortunately give it. Well, first I'll explain how I usually rate things. So for me, a 5 is an average. So like a 4 is bad, a 3 is like really bad, 2 is like horrible, awful, and then 1 is like, I don't know. It's you
1 shouldn't
it's
exist.
A 1.
Yeah,
but to me, on this 1 to 10 scale of 5 being average to me, I'd have to either give it like a 4 or a 3. Like, it's bad. It's not like don't ever see this bad. But it's like you're not gonna have the greatest time watching it. There's so many other things you could watch, or just read the manga or something like that.
For me, it is a don't see this. Why? For me personally, I don't see the point in seeing this. These, 17 times 5 minutes that you spent watching this, you could have been reading the manga at your own pace, reading it faster, slowing down when you want to look at a panel and laugh at it if it's a really funny scene. Like, so yeah, so my grading scale is like the typical, grading scale for like school in America, right? Like, so a 70 would be like a C, a 80 is like a B, a 90 is an A. So like 7 out of 10 for me is an average or a good. Like it was a good anime. It was decent. Decent average is like a 7. I would agree with you. I'd still give it like a 4, honestly. Like, I'm here to watch anime, and this is just not really an anime. And the fact that I read the manga first, it ruins my experience. Yeah, I maybe maybe it won't be as bad for you if you haven't read the manga, but I'm here to tell you, read the manga. There's no reason to watch this. So
I should have wore my shirt that said "Read the manga."
You should have. And did you see that this is a part 2 is already getting announced for this?
No, unfortunately.
A part 2. Netflix has already announced a part 2. So this first part went through the first 3 volumes of the manga. The next part will maybe catch up to the 6 that are out here in America. So I don't know. I'm not watching it. There's just no point in watching it. The manga, unless we get an actual adaptation with an actual anime, I don't see a reason to watch this. So yeah. All right. So looks like a 4 from both of us, or a 4 or a 3 from you. So that's the way of the house husband. It's what we thought it would be, which is disappointing. So I hate to be that guy. I've always hated these guys, but read the manga. Read the manga. So, all right. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk positive news. Yeah.
Fun news.
Let's get into the weekly news here. There is this anime. You may have heard of it. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's got a lot of different parts to it. And recently, so there's 5 previous parts that have been animated. Part 6 of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure has officially been announced to be in production. As a Jojo fan, as a manga reader, what do you think of this, Sherms? What do you think of this?
Oh, I'm so excited. I knew this day would come. I was, all these past years, I've been trying to repress the thought of it as much as I can. So then when it actually does get announced, I'm just ready. I've been hiding my thoughts. I'm like, oh, when's the, because usually once like some show, you're like, okay, like, it's been like 3 or 4 years since between the announcements and from the end of it's like I wanted to never think about that for this, so that this moment could just happen. It's like announced in like a few seasons, it's gonna be out. I'm so beyond hyped to see the most bizarre adventure.
Yes, the most bizarre adventure. So yeah, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, a classic shonen being handled very well by David Productions. Part 6, Stone Ocean. We're getting it. Who the hell knows when we're getting it, but we're getting it at some point. We know. I think fans are just happy that it's under production, right? Like they're working on it. We all knew it was going to come out, but we just want that confirmation. We just want it to be official in the books that we are getting a part 6, right? Because these studios, they don't tell you that they're going to keep continuing the series, right?
Unless they do it right in last episode or something.
Yeah, but with JoJo, they don't do that, right? Like, you get that to be continued, but you don't know if David Productions is going to continue it, or you just never know. Now that we know officially we're getting a part 6, that's great. That's great, right? Stone Ocean, Joylene Cujo. That's not a spoiler because this is part of the news. If you didn't want to see anything JoJo, then stay away. Stone Ocean. I can't wait to see what it's like. I don't know anything about it. You know about it. You're the manga reader here. Also, another thing to bring up. So the first 6 parts is like in its own universe, right? And then something happens, and then part 7 onward is its own universe, right? So I'm just happy that we get to see this universe complete, right? Like, it's not like we were going to get to part 5 and then, oh, well, there is Stone Ocean, but it never got animated. Like, no, like we at least get to see a conclusion to this whole universe that, Araki has created. So I'm happy that at least we're going to get the conclusion of this. You got to assume at some point, part 7, part 8, whenever that finishes, will.
There's no way they don't do part 8. I think part 8 is one of the most beloved and hyped ones and rated. Well, I agree as well, because it is. So I feel like it'd be a super disservice if they stop at 6 to not do 7.
But yeah, and all I'm saying is, and that would be a shame, but at least we get a conclusion to this universe. That's all that I'm saying. At least this universe is in the books, right? And like if they wanted to say, well, we want to wait for the next universe to be done or something like that, yes, it would suck and we'd have to wait, but I'm just saying at least this one is in the books complete. We have it all beautifully animated by David Productions. The thing is, and another question I have for you as the manga reader here, part 7, I heard is going to be very hard to adapt because of the constant motion, right? Like it's the travel across America. So that knock on wood, God forbid, we're hoping this doesn't happen. But if that never comes to fruition, I'm just saying at least we get, this whole universe done, which is, awesome. So it's great news, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think it's a lot. I think it's the part 6 is a little bit more on the shorter side of the JoJo. So it's like 30 episodes. It's not going to be like part 3 with 50 or so. So it's going to be more like a part 4 or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
So
you're saying it'll be one core or like just an extended run. We're not going to get 2 parts like that, part 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, and
That's
not to spoil, but it's the meme potential of this part is of the most potential of
even
any
more
of
than
the parts.
5.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Even more than 5.
The most
nice.
This is the most bizarre adventure. This is after you see this, you're like, oh, okay, that was a little wacky, and part 1 and 2. But it's gonna be wacky, not bizarre. This is like shit's gonna be happening. You're like, what am I even looking at? They're explaining it, but I'm still don't. It's some bizarre stuff.
Is this your favorite part?
No, part 7 is.
No, part 7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but of the first universe, right? Like 1 through 6. Out of 1 through 6, is this your favorite part?
I would say
you're gonna give it to 4.
Yeah,
huh?
I'm gonna go back to 4, but
okay.
But this is, I think, probably number 2. Just like the funness of this. I didn't read the other. I only read part 6 and 7. I didn't read part 5 and before, so I don't know. Maybe I had a different take on it if I read them originally. Mm-hmm. But I just love part 4 and the characters and everything, and just how the whole setup was, and just part 6 is just so wacky, and the fun bizarreness of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It wasn't just like an adventure like maybe like part 3. It's like, it's bizarre with some of the stands, but it's just everything is bizarre in part 6, and the fun because little spoiler, it's Florida. Crazy shit happens in Florida, as you've probably seen the news. Yeah, so
that's funny. This is set in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
So that's what makes it so fun. It's like, we're in Florida. We're just doing Florida hijinks.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's gonna be such a great ride. I think everyone's gonna. It might be a little too weird for some people. There's nothing like weird, weird. It's just so bizarre sometimes that it's like it might turn some people off that are used to more of a grounded.
Yeah, now that you say that, I didn't like part 5's ending because of I thought it went off the tracks. I'm fine with it getting weird. I just felt like the part 5 ending was just dumb. That's just me personally. I know a lot of manga readers felt that way too, but as long as it doesn't just go crazy like that ending, I'll be happy with it because you expect it. It's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's set in
Florida.
Set in Florida. That's
as you would expect from a JoJo's Bizarre in Florida is like now it's double bizarre here.
When was part 6 written? That's funny, dude.
Mm-hmm. Because there's so many memes and everyone sees of things that happen in Florida. So
early 2000s. That's funny. Looks like it's the early 2000s, 2000 to 2003.
Mm-hmm. It's always funny. Some of the references are probably not going to be said because some they just say just some character names in the one I read, but as always,
yeah, they change them a little bit, right? Like that way, David Productions, copyright issues. Mm-hmm. So, is this the first part that you've read that the content prior going into the season? Mm-hmm. Are you a little bit worried about that they might mess up a fight here or there, or
no?
Because no,
I'm not too worried. I think they'll do a bang up job. They haven't let me down.
Oh, for sure.
They haven't other than just the content wise. Dave Productions themselves hasn't let me down at all. They haven't really ever had any random episode where it's like, what happened in the animation here, or that fight was kind of felt dead. But I'm not too worried.
I would disagree with you. I would say they actually have for me, but they do fix all that stuff in the Blu-ray release because with anime production, they're doing it week by week, which is absolutely insane over there in Japan. Mm-hmm. It's not like how it's done here in America or the West. But I have seen still shot comparisons to like, here's where it was when it aired, here's where it is in the Blu-ray, and they just touch up a lot of scenes and make it a lot better. But yeah, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the bizarrest it sounds like, part 6, coming sometime. The countdown begins now. We have no idea when it's going to come out, but countdown for this, it's going to come out, and then it's like Christmas. We start all over again, because now we're going to be waiting for part 7 after this, and then part 8, and you know how it goes. But yeah, then let's get into the weekly thoughts here, just to end off this episode. And I will let you take the reins for this, but Germs and I have been getting into TCGs recently. I have a long history with TCGs, like, collecting them growing up and all that stuff. But it's a new ride, and new experience for you, Germs. So tell the viewers what we've been up to.
Well, as we said last week, I started getting into Magic, and I went to like the store and picked up a little pack, and I hadn't played it at all since at that moment. But the amount of things that happened since last week and this week are so much to talk about. So I'll start off with just the Magic portion, because once I'm done with the Magic, then I'll explain there's another TCG we've gotten into.
There's something else we stumbled upon.
Something real spicy in there. But we'll start off with the Magic here, and then we'll go into that and that whole story of how that got to be. But on Magic end, I went to, every few days I would go over, talk to the store owner, of your local game store, and just be like, I had some questions about some of the cards, because, I'm totally new to the game. Like, what does this effect do? Oh, can you explain how this works? The usual newbie questions. And then he's like, on Friday, we're going to open back up a little bit, a little bit more, chill session, even though, COVID's still going on. So I was like, sick. I actually get to play on Friday, meet some new people and all that kind of stuff. So then, come Friday, I come in, there's just tons. Well, initially there's like a few groups, there's like one group that I was playing with, they're playing Magic, another like a more old group playing like, more like a legacy Magic or something like that. And then, the corner, there's our fellow degenerates, they're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And all those other Digimon kind of things. So what do you have to say?
Mm-hmm. Just to let people know, you're coming in to this shop with a Magic deck. Like, you're there to play Magic.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I'm like, this corner is, I met a guy one of my times when I was visiting, and I was like, okay, he's there. I sit down with his group. I'm just watching over how their game's going, and then I play a few games. I start understanding the deck, and the first one, obviously, it's the first time playing it. It was kind of slow, but as I started getting the rules, my love for Magic started growing and growing and growing. Yep. And then the shop had to close at like 9 or something. And then one of the guys I was talking was like, I work like with like 2 minutes away. The like lobby is still open. We can go in there. We can continue playing. I was like, sick. I'm definitely down to go. It's still local. I'm only like a few minutes from back home, so I'm not too worried at all.
This is the classic late night Magic story, where you go to a shop, you sit down, you play a few games, and then out of nowhere you look at the time and you're like, oh shit, like I've been at this for a while. I mean, what time were you done with everything? You went to his place, you played with him. What time were you like, all right, I'm done for the night? It was like 1 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, one something. I sent a message to James and he was like, what the fuck, bro? What?
This is the classic Magic story. Anyone that's played Magic for a long time, or I guess any TCG, but this is like classic with Magic. You go for a game night, and then out of nowhere, it's like a couple games later, it's like late as hell. You're like, where did all that time go?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. I had a lot of fun. I'm gonna hang out later with that same guy again at his place to play some more Magic. And then, in the future on Friday, I think there's the pre-release for the next set, for the next, box of cards. So maybe James are gonna go. Maybe we'll open up some packs and stuff on next Friday. So super excited for that. So that's my newfound journey for Magic. It's been having a great time. Would super recommend any of the Commander decks, the more recent ones especially. So I would super, if you have some interest in it, just spend $15-20, pick up a Commander deck, get some sleeves, and bam, you're ready to go. Like the barrier of entry.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, the barrier of entry is so low. You know, you
Well,
can
with Commander,
with Commander.
historically it's been high with Magic. People, you know, a lot of rules, and it's not just a game that you kind of pick up and play, but you know, Wizards of the Coast has come out with Commander decks. It's a new format, Commander, and you know, it was originally intended for a little bit more casual play, and so yeah, now what you see is people going out buying a Commander deck, and
like me,
without getting too much into the mechanics of it, because of how thick the deck is and the fact that you can't have multiples of any card, it allows for a more randomized experience. So again, this is why I say it was more for casual play when they initially came up with this. So it's at the point where you can go buy a Commander deck and go to your local game shop and you're ready to go. You know, like it's typically with Magic, you know, with Standard, which is the typical format that you play in, you have to, you know, there's a set rotation. You have to buy all the cards, figure out a good deck combination, test out the deck, make sure it works really well. With this new Commander format, it's a lot more casual. People have turned it into more competitive. There is competitive Commander decks out there, but Wizards of the Coast has given newcomers, if you haven't played Magic, if you're a little bit interested, Commander is a fantastic way to get into it. You know, obviously you'll need to learn the rules and the basics, but as long as you buy a Commander deck, I mean, that's your deck. I mean, you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the best deck ever, but because it's such a randomized experience, you could take a stock Commander deck and play against a good Commander deck. And if they can't draw lands for whatever reason, or they, you know, it's 100 cards and you can't have any duplicates. So you get a very randomized experience, and that's what makes it fun. So if you want to get into Magic, Commander is a fantastic way to get into it, as Germs is saying here. So
yeah, I would super agree. I won my first game of Magic with that, you know.
Yeah.
Like
your very first game. Never played it before, but you got a Commander deck, and bam, you actually beat people who are regulars there. I mean, that's pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they're super cool, and you know, it was a great time to, you know, check out, you know, maybe if you have some like multiple local game stores near you, you know, try out one of their Friday night Magics or something, or Friday night, you know, there's so many other board games. I was talking to like a Digimon player, and he was like, oh, he's like, oh, I have some extra decks, you know, when you have time, you know, we can play a game and I'll show you. I'm like, oh, sick, you know. There's just so many welcoming people in the trading card community that just like, you know, you always want more players, you know, people to play with, you know, and you don't want to just
absolutely.
You don't be like, oh yeah, I gotta buy this like $2,000 deck, and like you have to learn these exact rules and this is the etiquette you gotta play. But like when it's Friday night, you know, TCG time, it's like, you know, I actually messed up this. Like, oh, what does this card do or something? It's so relaxing. It's like, you know, just Friday night. You know, it's the weekend now. Now you're just relaxing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny. So, and I hate to be this guy, but I got to be this guy, Germs. I got to be this guy. I've been into anime since what was the date I gave? 04, something like that. I mean, since the 2000s. You know, I was a Toonami kid, grew up on Toonami. You know, I even knew about Dragon Ball and stuff before Naruto came out, but Naruto's the one that really got me into anime. So I've known about this shit for years, right? In high school, I tried to convince Jeremy to get into it. And here we are years later, he's an anime fan. Well,
not the other way.
Back when I was a nerd as a kid, I was also into TCGs. And, you know, Germs never was into them. Years later, here we are. Germs is finally getting into it. And welcome. I was never competitive or like very casual. I was actually more of a collector than a player. I'd go to locals and get my ass whooped with, you know, different card games I've played over the years. But yeah, Germs is finally on the train, and the problem with me, I never had people to play with growing up, dude. I would go to locals and everyone would be older than me. I would be like the 9-year-old playing against 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. I mean, it was like dumb. And I'd come in with my deck that I thought was good, but not too many expensive cards, and you know what I mean? Like it's just
looks cool. You know how because it looks cool, you throw it in there too, you know, all that.
Yeah, you put what looks good, but you don't put what's actually good. And, you know, like a little kid, you think the TCGs are fun, but then you're like, oh, there's like actually rules to this, and you don't really know what's going on. And yeah, the biggest problem is that I never had someone. I knew people that would play with me casually growing up through various times of my life, right? Different neighborhoods and stuff like that. But I never had someone that I could like consistently call up, text, hey, come over, let's play a game or something like that. The fact that you're getting into Magic is perfect because now it gives me a reason to get into Magic because I never, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, and this is another recommendation, if you do want to get into TCGs, if you have a friend, it makes it a hell of a lot easier. Way easier, and they're interested as well, or they're already playing. Link up with them. Honestly, it makes it a hell of a lot easier. If you just try and put together a deck and learn the rules online, and then go to a local card shop, you don't know if you're going to mesh with everyone. You might; they might be cool.
I got lucky. I imagine there's probably some examples of not meshing well, but like
I've had that. I've gone to tournaments and people are snobbish and well you can't do that, type of shit. What was I gonna say before you interrupted? Yeah, like just being able to talk, like hang out with a good friend and just be like, hey, let's try these decks out. Let's I'll put this in your deck.
New here.
Yeah, like we're both new here. We're both starting off. Like, I'll put this in your deck. You can put this in my deck. Like, let's try this format. Let's try this format. I made this one. If you just put together something and go to your card shop, it might go well for you. But just having someone that you hang out with regularly, it just makes the experience a lot easier. So the fact that you're getting into it is going to help me get into it a little bit more. All my cards are like old, but that's going to change soon as I catch up and check out the new stuff Magic has going on. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Magic, and then there's another spicy one that we have stumbled upon. You lead the way with this, so yeah.
It was hilarious. I think it was there one Tuesday or Thursday because me and James hang out to work out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we were just looking through random cards and that kind of stuff and we were like, looking Magic, and we're like, wait a second, this anime has like a card for some reason. It's like, that's cool. Let's check it out. Let's see what that is. And then we stumbled upon Weiss Schwarz. If you don't know the name,
everyone watching right now is like, what is that? The German? What did he just say? Weiss Schwarz? What the hell is that? So explain what is Weiss Schwarz, Germs. I don't even know what the hell Weiss Schwarz is.
Yeah, because we're now new into TCGs, and we're like, looking, and then we're like, this Weiss Schwarz. It's got like anime, like a ton of different anime, and like tons of different cards, but it's like Magic, but with waifus, but your literal waifus in the anime. So there's like,
let me explain this. So Weiss Schwarz is another TCG, and so anime does come out with TCGs of their own, right? We've had a Naruto TCG, a Dragon Ball TCG, a Yu Yu Hakusho TCG, a Bleach TCG. When a show gets popular, they come out with their own trading card game. It makes sense, right? You're going to get all the weebs and all the people that like it to play it, and usually they're not as good, right? Because it's more for marketing in the show, and they're kind of just trying to. It's a cash cow. They're just
it's only for Bleach fans, only for Naruto fans.
Exactly. The interesting thing about Weiss Schwarz is it's one TCG, but it has multiple different anime under its umbrella. So you can play a Day Live deck against a ReZero deck. And it's not like ReZero is its own game and Day Live is its own game. This is all one TCG, all the same rules. You have to play, your deck has to be only one anime, right? So it's like a class system in other TCGs. So you either build a ReZero deck or a Attack on Titan deck or a Day Live deck, and you take your waifus and you play against other people with their waifus. I mean, it's a very fun concept, and I'm surprised that this wasn't done earlier, but Weiss Schwarz is doing it, and it's interesting. So yeah, what else do you want to say about it, Germs?
Yeah, and it feels like it's not too expensive if you buy like pre-order and stuff. And we got super lucky. We'll explain in a second. And it just seems like the community that they just love their waifus, and they make full decks of just Rem. They buy like every card they can for Rem. They pull the super expensive card for Rem. But like, for like, if you just want to play, they have like these trial decks for like $25 or whatever. And you can just, you can play of a certain series. Like, I want to try out this, Data Live or, Attack on Titan or something. The only problem, the main problem with Weiss is it's a little bit more just like a collecting slash like it's not big, you know. We barely, I feel like most like 99% of the people that are listening to us right now don't even never even heard in their life.
100% of the people, 100% of the people, absolutely no one's heard of this game. In Japan, it's big. Out here, you know, that's the biggest problem going against it, right? Like, player pool is huge for TCGs. You want to get into a TCG that has an active, committed fan base that, you know, you can play against people. That's the whole point. You want to put your deck up against another person's and play against it and have fun, right? I mean, that's the whole point of a game. That's the only problem with Weiss. It's just, it's a very small player pool. You know, it's not that popular. It's nothing compared to Magic or, you know, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, like the big ones out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then to that, because we were like, okay, we look into this, like, okay, we can see, like, maybe you can buy on Amazon some decks and stuff. We're like, oh, let's look for like some like stores that carry Weiss Schwarz. We're like, okay, we're like looking, you know, luckily we live in a pretty heavily populated area, so like, okay, there's no way there's not going to be, you know, within at least like 30-minute drive or whatever, an hour-minute drive at most, maybe. And it's just like, it was like in our area, like the closest, I tell you, like maybe they don't have it on their website or something, but the closest that we were able to find for us in a pretty heavily populated area is 1 hour away from us to the nearest store. Everywhere else, it's like the complete opposite side of, like, you know, over there, like 4 hour drive. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, this is unfortunately the main problem. You know, if you're super interested in it, maybe you can, you know, pre-order online or something. But if you want to go into a store, you know, talk to a store owner, like, oh, do you play Weiss? So do you have like tournaments or something? You know, it's a little bit harder now with COVID. But once COVID is, you know, a little bit more free, then it's like, oh, you know, there'll be like small little turns. But, you know, if it's like an hour, 2 hour drive, you know, maybe once a month, you know, maybe go over, you know, it might be, if you really enjoy, like, you know, a certain set or something, you know, just go into the store. So we were like, okay, let's go out tomorrow. We'll drive, you know, after class and work and stuff, and then we'll drive the whole hour.
And we did it. We actually did it. Yeah.
So we drove all the way there. You know, it was like a really totally, you know, we're in a totally different, you know, we're outside of Kansas. We're usually where we.
Yeah, we're leaving. We're getting. We're driving. We're going an hour to find this place. So, and we did.
So, and, like, we like see it, and it's like a more like, just, it has like a super generic like sign, and like they have, like, you know, some posters and stuff. We're like, oh, it might be like a super small store or something. And then we walk in, and it's just like they had a big post, like a big like poster thing that could open up and just has tons of just like individual cards.
Right as you walk in, too. Right by the door, which is cool.
So, yeah, we knew we were at where we were looking. We knew where we were looking for. It was there. And then we're like, oh, so where's the Weiss Schwarz? And you're like, he takes us like to like the corner, the complete corner of it, and then there's just like tons of the trial decks, tons and tons of them. Like I was like honestly expecting like maybe they have like 2 or 3 trial decks, you know, maybe like 2 boxes of a random thing.
I thought like a very small, because again, it's not a big. Magic the Gathering is so popular, you can expect that if you have a locals, they will have tournaments. They have tons of Magic, like that, baseball cards, Pokemon cards. You just expect that to be at every, you know, gaming store, right? With Weiss Schwarz, I mean, we're expecting maybe, like, you know, it's they might have some stock of it, and we found this place that does, but they might not have a ton, right? But no, it takes us to the corner, and there's just tons of boxes, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is the spot if you want to play Weiss Schwarz.
Yeah, I personally spent a spicy penny.
Pretty penny.
Yeah, very pretty penny. But it was so worth it. It's worth it. Like, you know, we were able to find so many different decks. I thought, you know, I see online they're like cost like $50 a deck, and I'm like, oh, it's like I'm picking like candy, you know, like as like my birthday is this week, so like I was like, okay, fuck it, you know, you know, this is like we're not like if we don't buy them these decks now, someone else is gonna buy them because they're gonna see how much of a steal this is, and then we'll just have to, like, you know, pay the inflated prices online or something.
Yeah, or we'll forget about it.
Yeah, we'll forget about
it. Something.
But, you know, you know, this is the, you know, it's a bunch of anime, you know, a bunch of like, there's so many different series that, you know, if you're a huge anime fan, you're like, oh, I'm, you know, Overlord, and, you know, Goblin Slayer and all that, like, like, oh, I want a Konosuba, deck, and I love Megumin or whatever.
Yeah, you'll find an anime that you want to play a deck as,
Yeah.
So
like,
if you're an anime, this game is for anime fans. If you don't know anything about anime, stay away from this. Like, it's not really for you. Like, there's better TCGs out there, right? But if you're an anime fan, and we assume you are because you're listening to the Weeb Retreat, this will it's going to have one of your best girls. It's going to have one of your favorite series. Like, this is really targeted towards the anime fan, and so yeah.
And the gameplay.
That's what drew us to it.
We haven't unfortunately played the game yet because we were busy playing Magic. But the gameplay seemed pretty interesting. It doesn't seem like super boring, and especially it's really based off what character or what kind of thing you're trying to go for. And just the art on a lot of these cards is really sick, especially obviously like the special cards and the rare cards. But like the art is just so fantastic. It's like, oh, like I was pulling like Ishtar a bunch for like Fate and stuff, and I was like, oh, beautiful. I'm getting a bunch of MASH cards. I'm like, oh, beautiful. This is beautiful. And it's like you're physically holding the picture in your hands. It feels the fun part of trading card games. It just felt so nice. Just like I have like a stack of MASH cards. Like, ooh, so excited.
What Germs is talking about is what every TCG collector has experienced at some point in their life. That rush, that high of like, oh, I own this now. I mean, that's what gets people sucked into this stuff. It's what gets people to love collecting cards and collecting anything really, is holding it it's in your possession, and you're like, this is mine now, And you had some good pulls, and yeah. The thing that I can say about secondary like TCGs is like they're not typically as good. So hopefully Y Sports is good, like gameplay wise. But even if it's not, the collectability is cool because it's got the waifus. It's got, it's got our favorite anime. It's got, as an anime fan, it's a cool card game. So, even if it's not good gameplay, as an anime fan, it'll have something for you. So.
Yeah. So if you want to just collect it, to collect it, you already know if you're going to do it or not. But if you want to play it, obviously, like just like with Magic, but especially with this case, you want a second friend, like, with how me and James are at the moment.
Yeah.
So that, you at least have someone to play, or like maybe if you're super lucky and you have a local game store that carries it, then, maybe you can find some people when they have a tournament or something. But, especially I would super recommend, having a friend and like, oh, is there any anime here that you like? Then just, go buy a trial deck. You don't even got to worry about, buying a box, for whatever price. Just, look what's coming ahead. Because, unfortunately, the hardest thing is that the prices for old things are just so, inflated and everything, because it's just, small game. So just like look for like, oh, like, because in a few months, there's still a few months luckily. So if you're listening to this somewhat recently, but like Kaguya is coming out in a few months, we're gonna buy a box or so, and like we love Kaguya. There's so many good characters to like oh, getting a Chika card or a Kaguya card or something like that. So but if you for the collecting aspect, it's a lot easier to buy new stuff. But as if you want to just buy like a trial deck for like $25 and play anime versus anime,
waifu versus waifu,
versus waifu.
Yep. Yeah, the having a friend is even more critical for a game like this, because with Magic you have Arena. Your locals is going to have a tournament. With Y Shorts, no one in America's heard of that. Like, you're going to be very like, you either get into this with a buddy, or you find a random ass card shop that actually carries it and actually has somewhat of a player pool playing it. So
hopefully with someone somewhere close, not like hours or whatever. Like we're hitting the limit for us. Like with an hour, it's like, oh, it's a spicy drive. But at least
with us, we got lucky. I'm sure there's got to be tons of parts around the country that don't have any. There's lots of places around the country that don't have any local card shop at all. So like, we're getting lucky with an hour because it's Y Shorts. You know what I mean? With Magic, you can expect, an active tournament player base, and shops to carry. Yeah, every single one. It's Magic. If you have a trading card game store nearby, they're gonna have Magic. Like, it's just that's standard. Like, you expect that. It's guaranteed. It's not even a question. Y Schwartz, not so much. Mm-hmm. But that's our TCG talk for today. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Weeb Retreat. Make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're a weeb like we are, if you like TCGs like we do. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, give us a follow there. And yeah, any final thoughts, Germs? I mean, this was a pretty stacked episode we had today.
Yeah, just trading cards. Just maybe interested fan, ask him. Show him why Schwartz. I'm like, oh, this is interest to you at all? Anyway, obviously you want to have some extra income. If you don't want to waste critical money on this stuff. But if you have some extra money and you have a friend that has some extra money too, ba bam.
Yeah, if you got some disposable cash, throw it at waifus. Why not? Right? All right, guys. Weebs out. See you guys next week.